It's Sarah, no support workers today. I got Keturah. We're back. We're ready. I can't wait to tell everybody in this podcast all the mischief that you're up to. So let's just crack a lack and let's get straight into it. What made you start a business in this sector out of all crazy
Goodness me.
sectors?
Of
That's a
all
big
the
question.
things to do, I know. Look, I fell into the sector nearly 20 years ago and have been working for a variety of organisations since then. And look, I think it was one of those things I'd always wanted to do something myself. I'd always wanted to start my own business, but the timing was never right. There was always something else going on, usually in my own life rather than in my work life, that just meant that it wasn't the right time for me to do it. And then funnily enough, it was life circumstances that ended up being the instigator for me actually making the move when I did, which was, just over 18 months ago now. Yeah, just really looking at trying to find some balance. I worked for an amazing organisation who were really supportive and really flexible, but I was going through some pretty significant stuff in my life. I was diagnosed with a chronic condition. I have neurodivergent kids and my eldest was just about to start high school. And so timing, I just kind of felt like I was doing really great in the organisation that I was working for, but felt like I had all these diva demands that I was kind of trying to, I was asking for a lot of flexibility, which they were happy to give, but there was still something inside of me that was just like, I really feel like I'm stretching the friendship a little bit. And I had the opportunity, I had some really great support around me to be able to step back from a 9 to 5, albeit a flexible 9 to 5, and to be able to focus on me and my family a bit more. But I'm not very good at not doing anything. So in that moment, in those quieter moments, whilst I was focusing on myself, I started a business.
Just start
As you
building.
do in your quiet moments.
It's like when everything comes, for me, I've done the same like you. It's kind of like that pivot moment that you've got. It's like that jump start that you kind of needed that you didn't even, at times I didn't even know I needed, but I got it anyway.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. It's the universal push in the right direction that just sort of everything happened so that it was the right time, really. Yeah.
So when you were working inside the organizations, what problems keep showing up and again that you just have to tackle?
Look, I think really in a lot of cases it comes down to organisations having systems that are designed for compliance, not designed for successful business management or business growth, or not designed for them specifically. So in a lot of cases, I've either worked for in my own business or worked for organisations when I was working as an employee, where there's a lot of additional work that's in place or that needs to happen, a lot of busy work that's happening in the back end to try and make the systems that have been implemented really work and really provide the value that they can do for that really strong foundation that organisations need to build from. And I think sometimes when there are systems that have been put in place as a catch-all from a compliance perspective, sometimes they're the wrong size for the organisation. They're the wrong fit. And it's like that, when you try on clothes that are one size fits all, they either don't fit because you're not the size that they anticipated when they created it, or they have to be big enough to fit most people, and therefore you end up with all this extra material that's flapping about in the breeze. And I think it's a similar thing with quality systems, where you end up with superfluous policies or procedures or registers or systems or processes that you then have to manage as an organisation, but are actually not helpful for you at all. They're just creating more work. They don't make you more compliant, but I think people get scared that if they refine or reduce things, that they'll end up cutting off compliance in the process. So it's finding that balance and really creating systems that are built for you, that are built for the organisation.
Is it kind of cool because you get to be like, wait, hold up, there's a better way. Follow me. Like, do you get to do things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think it can be really liberating. I think there's a lot of fear-mongering in the sector around compliance and around, the auditors are coming. And I've been an auditor before, and I don't think I'm overly scary, but I accept that, I can see why it's a nerve-wracking process. But I think being able to show people that it doesn't have to be that scary. And I think a lot of that comes from them understanding the value of the systems that are in place and making them but making them more than just a tick box process, which is where the value is for each individual organisation, for each provider.
It is funny, you're right, because people are like, "Oh, no, the auditors are coming," and maybe I've always had that mindset, well, they should be able to audit my paperwork any day of the week, and if I'm not happy with it, then there's a problem. If that makes any
Yeah.
sense? Like, I love
Yeah.
auditing. Like, it sounds so cheesy, but I did because then I was like, "Well, where do I sit on the benchmark? Like, am I high, low? Like, what am I working towards?" I didn't have, like, any KPIs on it or any crap like that, but I was just more curious of where my work could lead me. Do you find that people get excited about audit? Like, is there a percentage of people that enjoy auditing?
I am one of those people. I like to think there are other people out there, so you've made me feel good that I'm not alone. Look, I think there are. And I think there are probably more people that actually feel that way than they realize. I think there are a lot of people that are stuck in that anxiety, that fear around it, where if they actually switched their mindset about it and went, this is actually an opportunity for me to showcase what I do, for me to go, check out all the awesome stuff that
Mhm.
we do here. These are our clients. These are the systems that we use to help us. This is how we find out what's working and what's not. These are the cool things we've changed because people gave us feedback. And instead of seeing it as a test, see it as I say performance, but yeah, as a showcase, as an opportunity. And then people will come back and go, oh, look, there's a bit of a gap here. Or have you considered doing it this way? There's opportunities for improvement. And of course, there are things that you have to be compliant with. We can't get around it. But there's no one formula. There's no one recipe for that. And when people feel empowered to be able to apply their own culture, their own real values of
Mm.
their organization, what they want to these systems, they become something so much different than something that someone else created that you're going to come and get tested on. It's less of a test. Yeah.
Well, I feel like it's a really good opportunity to explore your teamwork that you've got because you've all got to be in it together. Like there is that, it's kind of like a Henry Ford factory where everyone plays a role to get to your policies and procedure, making sure that they're in line. And you need us all to work together to see that it is going where it's meant to be going. We're doing what we're meant to be doing. And when we succeed we all party, we all celebrate. It's because we followed what we needed to do to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that, everybody coming together as a community and working towards it. I liken it to work health and safety, quality being similar in that it doesn't just sit with one or a few people in the organisation. You can't actually be successful at it if you don't have systems built in and the understanding across the organisation that means that people know what their role is
Yeah.
in it. Policies
Yep.
and procedures don't make you compliant. People having access to policies and procedures that guide how they work every day, that are useful and valuable to them to be able to go to and go, now I understand where I begin and end because I've got access to these cool things that tell me what's expected of me and that give me some really cool guidelines to work within. And actually doing that and understanding them, that's where compliance is. It sits whilst there's all of these, things that are happening in the background. It really happens with each individual in an organisation, understanding how they contribute, really.
Well, it makes me also think because you interview our stakeholders, if they're our people that we serve as well, get interviewed during the process. Some people are a bit nervous about that. I dare say that we're on the same page here, but I find like this is a really opportunity to empower somebody for the services that they have. Have you found that when you've been auditing?
Yeah, absolutely. Interviews tend to make everybody a bit nervous, whether that's participants who've opted in to be interviewed and chosen for interview, or even workers who end up being part of that interview process. And I think really what it comes down to is being really truthful and honest. And auditors their job isn't to catch people out. It's not to try and trick people or, they shouldn't be convoluted questions that make you have to rack your brain for answers. And I think some people feel really overwhelmed by thinking that they have to know all of the answers in order to get it right, I guess.
Yeah.
And sometimes, for clients, participants being involved, really what you want is their honest feedback. If they don't understand how to access your feedback processes, or if they feel like they're, not being heard, or there are issues, you want to know those things as a provider. That's gold. That's
Yep.
where you improve your services. For support workers and other people who are involved in interview, really it's about knowing the information if you do, knowing where to find it if you don't. So if an auditor asks you a question, I don't know, but I know where to go to find it, is a really valid response. It's not the wrong answer. It's really showing that you've not only got the information, but when you don't know, you've got the right supports and strategies in place, the structure in place to point you in the right direction.
So, with auditing, what has it taught you so far when it comes to life skills outside of auditing? Has it taught you to have really good files on your computer, or has it given you any
So
skill sets that you've taken outside?
2 days ago, my laptop died. I spent the first 24 hours after it happened trying to fix it, and the most recent 24 hours setting up my new laptop because I couldn't fix it. But I did think about it earlier today and go, I'm so glad I do what I do because I've got everything. I've got all of my data, everything backed up. I've got all of my information there. I don't know how much that comes from auditing per se, but I mean, yeah, look, like I said before, I enjoy auditing. I've audited my own social media use in the past.
Yeah.
I have, I'll admit it. And it resulted in me uninstalling apps from my phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did an audit of my Facebook feed based on how many of the posts were actually from people that I knew, so people who I was connected to directly. How many were sponsored? How many were things that I wasn't interested in at all?
Yep.
And I can't remember how many posts. It was quite a few. It didn't take long to scroll through them all. But what I found was that majority of them were ads and things that I actually wasn't interested in. And very few of them, I think out of about 150 posts I scrolled through, I think there was maybe 3 that were from my friends or family. And
Yeah.
maybe it's just because I don't have a lot of connections and my
No,
friends and
no,
family aren't very active on Facebook, but
it's a whole
it's,
thing. You're right,
yeah,
because they were saying that a lot more people, when it comes to social media, aren't following because what's the point? They'll come across your content anyway. So a lot of people don't press the follow button because they'll see it through their feed and they get their dopamine and then they move on. They don't hold on to you.
yeah, it's interesting. But yes, so absolutely. I use auditing has influenced my life in all sorts of weird and wonderful ways.
I'm a little bit impressed.
Thank you. I can send you my results if you'd like.
I'll have to see if it makes the benchmark.
Review the data. Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be audited on my social media audit.
What gives you the confidence to build your own empire and, to build your own empire? Because not everyone can do it.
Look, I think for me, I see it maybe less as an empire and more as a community that grows together. And I think what gives me the confidence to do it is the people that I connect with and that I work with, and knowing that I can make a difference and that I can support people, whether that's through them having a better understanding of quality management, because it's not a lot of fun in a lot of cases. Like,
Yeah.
people don't go, yay, tell me more. So if I can frame it in a way that helps people to contextualize it, makes it really easy for them to absorb, but also makes it less dry, more meaningful, and actually links it to really good outcomes, then I guess that's the thing for me. That's the driver for me.
Mm.
The driver for me is helping people, and certainly helping people who help people. I'm a little bit of a roadie in that sense. I set up all your equipment and I'll help you tune your guitar and do your sound check and stuff for you. But you need to let me know what it is that you want to sing. What's on
Yeah.
your playlist? What do you want to sound like as an organization? And I'll help you pull together a really good show. And that I enjoy doing that. I love
I
doing
was,
that. So yeah, for me, it's the passion to really help people that's driven me
no,
to
sorry, I'm
go
having a
for it.
giggle because I'm like, if you're the roadie, I must be the groupie.
Cool. I like it. I
Now,
love it.
anyone listening, what does Quality HQ stand for?
In a philosophical way,
Go for it. I'm all ears. You
yeah,
got me.
look, it's really about making compliance inevitable rather than making compliance this ongoing goal. It's making, helping organizations to understand quality really well, to understand the value of it and how it improves their organization, their capacity for growth and scale, but growth and scale that is supportive of their workforce and their client outcomes. And so it takes all of these things that people value and their culture, and creates a framework that means that that is scalable in their organizations. It doesn't get left behind when they grow. It also doesn't get left behind when the sector goes, you'll never guess what, we're changing this and we're doing this and we're doing the other thing,
They
because
do
it's
it.
your structure. Yeah. Oh, look, there's still tweaks that need to be made, but when it's your structure that you've created, that you've got confidence in, there's really less of a panic, because you understand where those changes integrate with the system that you've got, because you know your system, you know your framework. And so for organizations that have got it in place, making those changes when they hit doesn't feel like a complete restructure, because they've got that foundation in place. So really, yeah, it is really about helping people. You said before, you were talking about people having these aha moments. I mean, that's what I live for, is helping people have aha moments.
Is it like when you talk about aha moments, is it really cool getting when you first start with a small provider and then slowly watching them scale to where they are today?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, that watching people's confidence grow, just in their systems and their structure, but in their mindset as well.
Yeah,
And that confidence that comes with that is great. That's why I do it. Yeah, absolutely.
would be really rewarding. And then because in the beginning, people need you more. And then as time progresses, it just slowly, gradually drifts away, if that makes any sense, because in the beginning is always hard.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And I've said, my goal in my job is to do myself out of a job, which doesn't sound like a great business model, let's be honest. But my goal is not to make people dependent on me. My goal is to make people independent and have the
Mm.
capacity and the confidence and the understanding and structure built in their organization that they can run with. So they don't need to keep coming back to me, that they slowly create this capacity
Yep.
internally that means that, I can release them into the wild.
Is there is there anything that providers make a mistake on commonly that you see as when it comes to it?
Oh, look, probably the biggest things that I see, um, providers get stuck on or feel stuck on, um, are policies and procedures. Two things: policies and procedures, risk
For that,
management.
that's why, we're all support workers at play, right? We enjoy people.
Well, absolutely.
That's
I
what we
know.
do
I
best.
totally get it. Who wants policies and procedures? But yeah, look, I think in a lot of cases and in the sector that we're in, a lot of providers have purchased their policies and procedures. And whilst I understand why, they often end up with policies and procedures that are similarly to what I said before. They've been
Mm,
created as a catch-all, and they've been created specifically for compliance, not for your organization, not for your culture, not for your systems, not for the way you want to run your organization. And in a lot of cases, they're purchased with these caveats built in, like, whatever you do, don't change them or they won't be compliant. And the reality is if you don't change them, they're not compliant. Not that if you do, but there's, again, coming back to that fear that people have of either not being compliant in the
mm.
first place or undoing something that was compliant. It's that I don't know what I don't know problem. But I think organizations have really busy policy and procedure manuals that they're responsible for reviewing and updating,
Mm.
but that they actually don't know where to begin and end. It's like, what do I review and update? I know it's compliant. I've been told not to touch it. I'm a little bit worried about it. But also they end up with all of this dispersed workforce that are out there doing these amazing things. But that if they don't have a solid policy and procedure suite of documents to guide them, are constantly on the phone to different people. Hey, I've got a
Yeah,
client that needs, I need, how do I? And if they could create that really solid document suite to support them,
yeah.
that's their go-to. It's kind of like it's their song sheet. It's the lyrics that they go to. So everyone's singing the same song. And I think the issue that people have, and something that I've come up against before, is people going, well, you're either person-centered or you're system-centered. And that kind of does my head in a bit, because your systems can be person-centered. And I think
Yeah.
people go, I feel like it's red tape, and it's just, there's no person-centered if you've got a policy that tells you how to do it. But it's actually how you create safe person-centered services, and you support your workers to know where they begin and end, so they don't put themselves into situations where they're like, oh, person-centered, sure, you can do whatever you like,
Yeah.
I'll do whatever you ask, which is really not. That's a massive risk to your organization. It's a massive risk to that worker, and it's an even bigger risk to that client. It's having person-centered structure in place that's really where the gold sits.
I 100% agree, because if you have a really open-ended one, it means that you could provide support to everybody. And as a provider, we're not a one-stop shop. Like, we can't. We have to be particular what we do well and do that well, instead of thinking that we can provide support to everybody, because everybody that comes through and who we support has all these different disabilities and have different environmental things that we as providers can't always get right, and we are not the right provider for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I said before that the standards aren't a recipe. They're a serving suggestion, right? They don't tell you exactly what needs to go in. They just tell you what they want at the end. This is person-centered, provide person-centered services to everyone. How you actually do that is up to you as an organisation. And if you've not written down the expectations of your workers in your documentation, and that's expectations of practice, but as well as behaviour, how you expect them to be with people. I want you to involve people. What does involve people look like? Like, make it really obvious, because then you can be really confident in your organisation having that consistency in your practice, but consistency in culture as well, and in what
Because
you're wanting to provide to your clients, not just person-centered services to everyone. We're not the Oprah of person-centered. So you get person-centered service, you get person-centered services. But there's actually something meaningful behind that, so that everybody understands for your organization what person-centered services really means in practice. And that's where it's really valuable.
100%, because it does have a bit of a personality and a language around it, because I have worked at providers where I felt like I was opening War and Peace, and I was like, oh God, this is this is huge, and then I've had others who are like, oh yeah, I get you, and then you can see with certain founders the personality that comes out with their policies and procedures and how it aligns with that workplace. So when writing them, they can be a little bit of fun. Like, you can put things that are really service-based into them.
Yep, absolutely. They should be easy to read. They should be, they're your guiding documents. If you don't have a conversation or say at least once a week, what does our policy say, or what does the procedure say, then your policies and procedures aren't written for you. They're not. If you're not referring to them constantly, then you don't have a document suite that's actually valuable for your organization. And I'd love to help people to be able to transition those.
So how do you do it? Like, how do you build like a female-led business in a space that can feel really corporate and really serious and kind of stiff?
By being really not corporate and stiff. Yeah, look, I think in health and human services, so in the sectors that we work in, I think it lends itself to being more human and more connected and having better conversations with people. And so I think for me, it really comes down to being myself, being my professional self. But really, part of my approach is to bring humour, I do a lot
I
of
didn't pick it.
storytelling
I
and
didn't pick it.
a lot of storytelling and analogies and stuff. So I don't approach things by reading to people from the standards. It's not how I
It's my
operate.
favorite sleep time book.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If I want to really put people to sleep, I've got plenty of resources to do that. But yeah, look, I think really it is about having a different approach that meets people where they are. A lot of people in our sector aren't corporate and stiff, and They need, and that's where they end up feeling a barrier to quality
Yeah.
management and compliance, is because it feels like that stuffed shirt stuff where
Yeah.
you're like, I don't get it. I don't understand it. So where I can make it and put the human into it, and help people to contextualize it so that it feels applicable to what they're doing. It feels applicable to the care sector that we're in. I want to care for people. I don't want to talk about risk. I don't want to write policies. I just want to help people. When they can see how these things really support what their goal is, it just makes all the difference.
It's also, and covers your ass
Oh, yeah.
big time. Like, there's no, like, I'm not very good at expressing it, but it really does, because if you don't have anything in play, then you're an open book, and
Yes.
to allow some terrible things to happen to the people that we provide care to.
Yeah. And it's unfortunately, there's been a lot of stories in the media about organisations, and in some cases really well-meaning organisations, but that really highlight the unfortunate part of the story, which is I didn't know, not being good enough, not being a solid excuse. That's where, a lot of these systems and strategies are safeguards, like you said. It really is
Yeah.
it's
You
a
can,
process in covering my ass.
but you also can get fined, like, through the roof if
Yeah.
you don't have things in place. Like, there was a provider, don't want to name, there's a provider out there that somebody had passed away in care, and they had to go back and retrain all their staff because they weren't aware of a certain way to support people. And then they were fined a big amount, and fairly so, because somebody passed away in care.
Yep,
Yeah, does happen.
absolutely. It does happen. It does happen then.
Mm,
And, it works both ways as well. Creating strategies and frameworks that mean that all of your workers go home to their families every day,
yes.
safe
Yeah.
and, not burnt out and in a position to be able to play with their kids and go on a date night with their partner is also, you've got, when you're running an organization, you've got a lot of people.
Mm,
You've got a lot of people that are looking to you. And I recently was talking about risk management. We get up in the morning and majority of us have a hot drink, and it's risky, right? If you've ever seen me in a kitchen, I can somehow burn myself on anything. It's a skill, but I still risk having a hot drink every day. And I could, we put strategies in place. Maybe I put a bit of extra milk in or a little bit of cold water to help me not burn myself on everything because I'm good at it. Maybe people like their coffee hotter, but when you're making decisions for yourself to have a hot drink
yep.
every morning, it's very different to then going, I'm now responsible for all of these workers and all of these clients to all have a hot drink. And do I have the same appetite for that risk or not? And that's where things become a lot more grey, right? We can make those decisions for ourselves, but as organisations that are supporting our workforce and our clients through, and a vulnerable
Mm,
clients who have this supportive workforce that are at risk of, certainly at risk of burnout. We're a
mm.
caring sector, and so yeah, it's a lot to take on.
I feel like for a lot of people, when they hear risk management, their eyes just go open, because you're like, and then you start looking around like, and this could be a risk, and that could be a risk. And then, like, it just, the overwhelm, like, it can be quite overwhelming because you don't realize how many risks there are until you have to write it down.
Absolutely, but without highlighting them. And I think, it can feel like an exercise in doomsday sometimes, which
Yeah.
can feel really, what's the worst that could happen? Let's write it down and map it out. But in all honesty, it actually creates really interesting conversations. It actually gives you the ability to create really supportive structures for your organisation, linking it back to policies and procedures, linking it back to, your systems and your registers and your frameworks that support your organisation. But it's the difference between having a safety harness on or having an ambulance on site.
Mm.
I'd much prefer to have a harness on and to not fall to my, plummet down to the ground than to be trying to fix things retrospectively. So wherever you can create this proactive harness that
Yeah.
is there to provide you with some support so that you don't, in the hope that you don't fall, means that, you could have the best paramedics on call. If I offered you that as a solution, look, you can have this harness or I'll
Yes.
call an ambulance for you, get up to that, the top floor and start working. Most people in the right minds, I would think, would opt to have a harness if they're going to be working at heights. It's creating a harness for you and your organization.
It's also giving you informed decision making because you know the process and it maps it out very easily and very quickly what road you need to go down next.
Yep. Yeah. And your appetite for that risk. Like I said before with the tea and coffee, my partner used to jump out of airplanes. No. Um, but that he had an appetite. That was a risk he was willing to take. It's not a risk I'm willing to take. And every organization should be aware of their own risk appetite as well, because that drives the strategies you put in place. If your risk appetite's really quite high, maybe you will just have a paramedic on site. That's your
Yeah.
organization's risk appetite. Your risk appetite might be so low that you might not even let people work at heights. There's a massive scale and all of these things come into play. The different risks, your appetite for them, the strategies that you have available to you as an organization, and how they all work together to create this really cool supportive framework. Yeah, but it
So,
is. Make people glaze over.
well, you were talking about risk appetite. To own a business, it is a risk, and you've got to have an appetite to do it. Could you give anyone any advice that you would have if they were to step out and do their own consultancy?
Look, yes.
Don't do it.
Yeah, invest in coffee. Invest in caffeinated drinks. No, look, I think really it just comes down to going for it, I think. If it's something that you can't stop thinking about, don't stop going for it. Just really, you only get one life. So get out there and do it. But, do some risk analysis, where your risk appetite is, maybe you financially have, you have different financial risk appetite to the person sitting next to you, but what does your financial risk appetite look like? I can throw everything into it for the next 6 months, 3 months, 12 months. What does that look like? What are my, my hard nose? What are my backstops? How can I support myself from, getting into financial turmoil? All of those sorts of things. It's really, your risk analysis is really just a pros and cons list on steroids. It really just is looking at your cons list and going, what if, and then figuring out whether or not, or which ones of those what ifs are non-negotiables. That's not
Yeah.
okay. If that happened, nah. So what can I do to make sure it doesn't at all because I've got zero appetite? Or I could probably do a little bit. What's my appetite and how do I keep myself in? What strategies can I put in place to make sure that I don't fall out of that level of risk in that area? And then go for it.
Would you risk it all again?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And look, I'm really lucky to have some really great support behind me, which has been really what's made me able to go for it and grow really quite pleased.
I'm sorry. It's a good
That's all
one.
right.
So at the moment as you're building your business, are you scaling? Are you refining? Are you just happy-go-lucky?
Happy go lucky sounds great.
It does, doesn't it?
It does. Look, I tend to go through these cycles of growth and refine and growth and refine. And now I would say I'm probably in a bit of a refining moment, but I am excitedly implementing a new system because
You
I
gotta
love
tell
that
me.
because it helps me nerd out. But it's really helped streamline. I went through some process mapping of my own and have found a system that can really help me streamline it. I know. I practice what I preach.
Yep.
So I'm in the process of that at the moment while still working with clients. I'm still doing work, still working with providers. But yeah, at the moment that's my focus. And then once that is all finalized and in place, then it will be another launch pad for my next growth phase. I know.
It
Watch this
sounds
space.
exciting because you've got a bit going on, because you do educate the community that you have and you built around you. You got consulting. I have seen you on other podcasts speaking. Is there anything else?
Yeah, look, I'd love to do more events this this year. So I'm loving podcasting. I write Spilling the Quality newsletter, which I send out every week, which is all story-based, often mildly embarrassing stories about my life that somehow then link back to some sort of insight or ideas to support quality management in organizations. So I really enjoy doing that. And yeah, I've got some talks at some networking events coming up as well in WA, which is a bit exciting. But yeah, look, I'm just looking forward to connecting with more providers and to support as many people as I can.
So what does your next 12 months look like? Is it more just going to networking and more providers?
Yeah, look, I think a combination of all of those things is what I've got on the cards. But yeah, look, as I said, at the moment, my business as usual is as much networking as I can. So I do a lot of online networking for, because I'm based in WA, but I support people across Australia. So I do a lot of online networking to reach people on the eastern coast of the country, and I try to get to as many in-person ones in Perth as well to try and support people. But any more opportunities for online networking, for events and things like that, I'm open
With
for
bells on.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So if I brought you back onto this podcast, say 2 years from now, what would you love to say that you've achieved?
Oh, goodness me. I really just comes down to supporting the people who need it. So I'd really, for me, it is, I say quality, not quantity, but it is. I'm really, um, I'd really like to be able to support as many providers as possible. So I'd love to launch I was talking about policies and procedures before. I'd love to launch
Yeah.
a policy lab, so an intensive for organisations to be able to join, to be able to support them to
Yeah.
get the confidence and the skills and everything to review and refine their own policies and procedures that they've already got, but that maybe not fit for purpose. So I'd love to do some more group things like that that mean that I can reach more people.
Have you got any words for anyone that is just using AI with what things to look out for? Because it's not the be all and end all. It doesn't fix all your problems as a business.
Yep, absolutely. Look, I think AI 100% has its place. Um, but I think it still comes down to, at the moment, you get out in a lot of cases what you put in. So you need to have an initial understanding of what it is that you're doing to be able to really create these things that are supportive of your organization. So in some cases, putting into AI, write me a consent policy, and using what it spits out is really similar to purchasing one off the shelf. Unless you know what you need for it to do, or what it is that you're wanting for it to achieve for your organization specifically, or what standards you're wanting it
Yeah.
to align with and how, yeah, you'll get out what you put in, essentially. And I liken it to, if you think about going to have surgery done, would you want to go to a doctor that actually just plugged into AI, how do I cut out someone's tonsils? And followed what? So, look, I think there's an element of maintaining your own knowledge, your own confidence that you've built for yourself. So it's not relying on AI to give you a finished product. It's
Yeah.
about utilizing AI to write what you need and know you need faster for you.
It
So
can't
I
have
think there's got to be
personality.
that element.
The AI doesn't
No.
have a personality. It's not human, and it still needs a human to read over it and to ensure that what is said is 100% correct. This idea that we can set and forget and leave the whole project to them I think, is wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll say it. I do
Yep.
feel like you still need a human element to oversee it.
I think it's takes away our critical thinking and our creativity, or is at risk of taking away our critical thinking and creativity, where if we're utilizing it to think for us or to create for us, we're actually losing those skills for ourselves because we don't use them anymore. I guess it's
Yeah.
similar to, to Googling the answer to everything. I've never remembered actors' names. I'm the person that goes, the guy with the face who was in the thing.
Yeah.
I never forget actors' names, but I now can Google the show that I'm watching and see the cast list and then find the face and find who they are and find what I saw them in the past that I recognize them from. So, I never really had it, let's be honest. I never really had the skill to begin with.
Yep.
But, like I no longer have to sit with that uncomfortable thing of trying to remember and waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning going, I've remembered. But I worry that we lose our critical thinking, um, our innate intelligence because we're outsourcing it to an artificial intelligence.
Well, I just feel like personality can only do so much. Like I'm dyslexic as hell, so I need ChatGPT to run my life so people aren't reading an email and wondering what the hell happened because the structure is completely off. And I use some interesting words at times. So so what I think and like for the love of God, I'm never going to know which there to use in a sentence. It's never going to
Yep.
happen, but I use it for that stuff, but it's not creative like a human being, and it needs to be
No.
prompted.
Yep. Really well. It needs to be prompted really well to replace that. And personally, I don't want it to get to the point where it's replacing my personality.
It hasn't replaced it. It does refer to me, ChatGPT, as brat, but I do find that a little bit funny.
That's kind of brilliant.
Yep,
That is
we'll
kind of
roll with
brilliant.
it. We'll roll with it. But other than that, anybody that's listening, how do they get in contact with you directly? Is it a website? Is it LinkedIn?
Absolutely. So you can visit the website qualityhq.com.au, or please feel free to find me and reach out on LinkedIn. That's where I play. After my social media audit, it's pretty much the only place that I play. So find me there and subscribe to Spilling the Quality if you're curious about it. Jump on. I send one out every Monday. You can subscribe through the website or through my LinkedIn as well. There's a link on there to subscribe. They're probably the best ways. But yeah, reach out. I'm more than happy to connect and chat.
Thank you so much for tonight doing the
You're so
podcast.
welcome.
Until next time,
You're
my
really
friends.
welcome.
Cheers.
Thanks for having me, Sarah.